welcome to Terror in Tandem's Octerrorfest 2023. All month long, we will be celebrating the horrifying delights of the spookiest month, October. Prepare yourself for episodes that frighten and delighten your spine, and we will chill you to the bone. You can find us on our new YouTube channel, Terror in Tandem, or online at terrorintandem.com and on Instagram at Terror in Tandem.
And we're standing right behind you.
Basically, just turn around.
Yeah, it's just every time you see us, you are really terrified.
Honestly, we've always been there.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to work on my skin.
Hello.
Hello.
It is a little pale.
I meant scary. Horrifying.
Oh, like
I have that Freddy Krueger
got
disease.
that Cronenberg skin?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Probably because I used the Cronenberg's line of hair and makeup.
I was just going to say how hilarious it would be if David Cronenberg came out with like a whole line of skincare products.
Well, we have to write a commercial about that.
Oh, I believe he does have it, and we just signed a sponsorship deal, is what I meant to say. So
have you heard about the new line?
Yeah, we should be expecting an upcoming ad from the very, very fine people at Cronenberg Limited.
Cronenberg Cosmetics.
Put this on your face and get gross. Hi, Octerrorfest. What wonderful, spooky, horrifying, terrible theme are we going to be discussing today?
Today we're talking about haunted homes.
Haunted homes?
Haunted homes.
I want a sign.
Haunted houses.
I want a sign from Target that says something like, this haunted house is a home.
Well, no, you can't have, just because your house is haunted, you can still make it a home.
Die, laugh, love.
That would be amazing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Just because this house is haunted doesn't mean it's not a home.
We're going to start a whole line of like basic bitch plaques and posters you can put in your Airbnb, only super dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, I know that you had looked into actual real life.
Yeah, let's talk
houses.
about the historical movement of how haunted houses become such a have become so synonymous with Halloween and just scaring people.
Absolutely.
All the time.
Do it.
So the origins of the haunted house date back to the 19th century in London, when a series of illusions and attractions introduced the public to new forms of gruesome entertainment. Now,
it should be noted, two other things were happening at this time in London. People like Aleister Crowley were becoming very, very popular, almost celebrity types, and people were drinking a lot of absinthe with wormwood and taking opium.
In 1802, Marie Tussaud started...
Also known as Madame Tussaud?
Yes. Well, I don't know if she was a madam then.
I'm just saying. You want to go look at creepy wax figures.
Yeah, she started to display an exhibition of wax sculptures of decapitated French figures, including King Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, and Robespierre.
Maximilian.
Yeah. Her likenesses were so accurate because she had created death masks of the French Revolution's many guillotine victims.
God damn.
So she set up a permanent London exhibition and she named it the Chamber of Horrors, and the name stuck, and it's part of the Wax Museum to this day.
It is. I've been. There's the one in London has a whole exhibit on medieval torture devices, which is cool until you realize, oh no, these were real and used on real people.
Yes.
And then it becomes less cool. But that's fascinating.
And then at the turn of the 20th century, in Paris, the Grand Guignol Theater became notorious for its onstage depictions of dismemberment, and the theater's director, Max Maury, famously boasted that he judged each performance by the number of people who passed out.
Yes, and quite famously, it stayed open until the early 60s, closing because the then director stated that the horrors of 2 world wars and the Holocaust had rendered the Grand Guignol Theater tame and unshocking, that the world was now so used to horrors and violence that watching them on the stage was no longer fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Halloween-themed haunted houses first emerged during the Great Depression as American parents schemed up ways to distract their kids because their holiday pranks escalated to property damage, vandalism, and harassment. And so those first haunted houses basically took place in the family home in the basement, and they would hold house-to-house parties. So kids could scare themselves by traveling from basement to basement and experiencing different scary scenes.
Wow.
And then the haunted house itself became a cultural icon when Walt Disney decided to build one in Disneyland.
Haunted Mansion.
It
Yeah.
opened in 1969, nearly 2 decades after he approved the project.
Wow.
It was designed in the style of the Evergreen House and the Winchester Mystery House,
which
yes. I am going to talk about.
Yeah.
And they brought this scene in the final scene in the grand ballroom to life through exceptionally complex series of illusions known as Pepper's Ghost, which use refracted light to project and shape ethereal images.
I love the Haunted Mansion. My
Me
favorite
too.
part.
It was one of my favorite rides that I went on.
The part where you look in the mirror and what's staring back at you is like a hideous version of yourself. That is the best.
In California, you can find Knott's Scary Farm. From Knott's Scary Farm, you can find Halloween Horror Nights. And there are as many haunted houses and attractions in many states. So you can look those up online. But I did want to say, like, professional haunted houses really became synonymous with the 80s.
So you're talking like staged, fake, you know, people in costumes. Yeah.
And then tragedy struck when a fire at a haunted house in New Jersey trapped and killed 8 teenagers. Yikes. And so it shut the attractions down and enforced safety regulations, which, to be honest, the 80s didn't have as many safety regulations.
I mean, between that and Action Park, maybe don't go on attractions in Jersey.
And if you want the ultimate experience of horror, like real horror, not just something you go in for an hour or two.
Make friends with a serial killer.
You can go to the McGamey Manor in Somerton, Tennessee. If you complete this haunted house experience, you win $20,000. No one ever has. The fee to enter is a bag of dog food.
Okay.
Contestants have to get a letter from their doctor asserting they're physically and mentally fit. There's a drug test the day of. They have to sign a 40-page contract, and you have to have medical insurance because you're likely going to get hurt.
That is basically the plot of the
Saw.
movie Hell House LLC, which is actually a really good found footage haunted house movie.
Yeah. So I'm not going to do that. I am fine with just being scared and then I'm going home for the night.
Fine with not going to Tennessee.
So do you want me to tell you about some actual haunted houses you can go to?
So give me nightmare fuel.
I mean, I will say with air quotes.
Yeah.
Ones that aren't really constructed.
It's like psychics. Yeah. Your mileage may vary.
So there's one called Al Madam in the UAE, United Arab Emirates.
Wow.
It's a ghost town, essentially. It's located southeast of Dubai. The village was built in the 70s and was deserted shortly after. The local legend attributes the jinn to scaring people right out of the town. And nobody knows for a fact whether the spirits have lingered, but Al Madam still has like a haunted quality to it. Dunes encroach on the 2 rows of houses and a mosque, and sand blows through the broken windows, and all you see is endless desert in every direction.
Oh man, that's
It's like a ghost village. Yes.
When I took a drive across the country, you know this, when we were young, and driving through Western Texas, I passed many small ghost towns like that popped up because they struck oil. So a bunch of people there was like a general store and a couple of homes. And then, and the well runs dry, everybody leaves. Yep. But they leave behind these little buildings that are now just kind of infested with scorpions and stuff.
Yeah.
But, there's nothing inherently evil or malevolent about them, but there's something about a dilapidated, uninhabited building that gives off an air of wrongness.
And when it has a legend, like a
djinn
shifting spirit came and made everybody leave.
Yeah, that's probably the best decision at that point.
Yeah.
When a djinn shows up and
it
says,
just makes me
"Get
think
out."
of Aladdin when all the sand made all those shapes.
Yeah. I mean, a genie is a Disneyfication of a djinn.
It is.
Yeah.
The next is Leap Castle. That's in Ireland.
And
it was built sometime between the 13th and 15th century. It's seen very, very gruesome deaths. And as legends have it, during the struggle for power within the O'Carroll clan, which had a fondness for poisoning dinner guests.
A fondness, you say?
Yes. One member plunged a sword into his brother, a priest, and he was holding mass at the castle's chapel, and now the room is called the Bloody Chapel. And the priest is said to haunt the church at night. During renovations in the early 1900s, workmen found a secret dungeon in the Bloody Chapel with many human skeletons. They filled 3 cartloads of human skeletons. And the dungeon was designed so that prisoners would fall through a trapdoor, have their lungs punctured by wooden spikes on the ground, and die a slow, horrific death within earshot of the O'Carroll clan.
So, yeah, haunted as shit, obviously.
So, the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's certainly an inspiration.
Laura.
Yeah.
Wow. Irish. Ireland, are you okay?
I'm not going to get into it specifically, but the Tower of London in England.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, everybody that has died there, executed there.
I mean, if you go visit, there are some rooms where you can see literal scratch marks on the wall,
Yeah.
people marking the passage of time.
Yeah, with like broken nails and bloody fingers.
Yeah. And there are actually dried bloodstains that you can see. It's a very sobering experience.
Next, we have the Borgavanet Haunted Vicarage in Sweden. Originally built in 1876. People have noted oddities since the 1960s.
It is haunted by a Swedish chef.
It's a bed and breakfast now in rural Sweden where you can go snowmobiling and fishing, but that's pretty much it. And guests that decide to stay there hear footsteps, music, and the sound of 3 crying ladies coming from the inn.
I mean, it just sounds like living in an apartment building.
Yeah. The proprietors will reward you with a certificate if you stay through the night.
Oh, a certificate. Nice.
Also, House of Seven Gables in Salem, Massachusetts, birthplace of Nathaniel Hawthorne.
Who wrote ghost stories himself.
Yeah, I mean, he wrote House of Seven Gables.
True.
Formerly known as the Turner Ingersoll Mansion. It was occupied by the spirit of a man who was seen climbing a secret staircase inside the house by a young boy who still plays in the attic.
Oh, goodness. What is scarier than watching someone climb a staircase? Yeah,
exactly. And then we have the Winchester Mystery House in San Jose, California.
This phenomenon of rich assholes spending their money on dumb crap, it's always been a thing.
Yeah. So the Winchester Mystery House, following the death of her husband and child, Sarah Winchester, the wife of the rifle maker.
Yes, the company responsible for untold numbers of deaths.
So she's the daughter-in-law of the original Winchester.
A lot of bad juju.
Well, she was informed by a seer that her family was killed by the ghosts of gunshot victims. So this Victorian mansion that sits in like San Jose, is supposedly haunted by every single person ever killed by a Winchester rifle.
In this country, that number goes up significantly every year.
So Sarah Winchester, in order to appease the spirits, kept adding on rooms to make the house, to make more space for the dead.
And rooms that didn't make sense.
She created a labyrinth filled with halls that lead to dead ends, cut off staircases, sloping floors, and a rabbit warren of chambers. The house has 10,000 windows, 2,000 doors, 47 fireplaces, 40 staircases, 13 bathrooms, and 9 kitchens.
And I believe her last words were, there was absolutely no better way for me to spend my money.
The butler did it.
Jesus Christ.
I know.
People.
Some of the creepier features include staircases that lead directly into a ceiling, doors that open onto brick walls, and windows that can take you into secret passages.
What a cool family.
You should look it up online.
Oh, I have. I've looked all over it. Yeah.
From the front, nothing. But from the top and back and side, it's
like looking inside the mind of a crazy person.
How do you even get around? Yeah. It's like Escher. MC Escher's house.
If it was not owned by the unbelievably wealthy heiress of America's favorite company, that would never have been allowed to happen.
So that is some of the real life haunted places that you can visit today.
Or avoid.
They'll take your money.
Yeah, they sure will. That kind of dovetails into what I wanted to get into, which is now I'm going to get into fictitious haunted houses, which, listen, whatever your beliefs are, I'm going to talk about media representations of haunted houses. And in my estimation, there's basically 3 kinds of haunted houses. Now, one of them is bad shit happened here. Mm-hmm. It started out as a regular house, but so much awful stuff occurred in it that the residual energy infects the house itself. It seeps into the bones, the foundation, so that the house itself is now inexplicably tied to human malevolence.
Like when anybody shows up, they can feel it.
Yeah, so the Amityville Horror is a good example. Because Ronnie DeFeo murdered, his whole family there. And the idea that drunken wife beater Frank Lutz conned everybody with was, oh, it's haunted.
Yeah.
But the idea is you commit enough evil that the energy that is released doesn't dissipate. I always found this fascinating because I grew up very Catholic, and all of the Catholics around me...
Like the O'Connell clan?
Exactly. We lived very similar lifestyles. And all of the Catholics around me believed in ghosts and spirits, which, if you follow the Catholic teaching, aren't really supposed to exist because we all either go to heaven, hell, or purgatory. So ghosts really shouldn't be on the earthly plane, but every Catholic I ever knew believed in ghosts and haunted houses. So the other kind is a house that is built for evil. So this is a house that is designed from the very beginning to harvest spirits, collect dark energy, something like that. Usually made by an insane architect. So like the
Winchester house.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the art or the the building, the apartment building from Ghostbusters was designed by an evil architect to summon Gozer. That kind of thing. That can be like a torture house, like H.H. Holmes built. But it is a house that was built for the purposes of evil. And the third kind I came up with is built on cursed ground. You done built your suburban development on top of a cemetery, and you only moved the tombstones and not the bodies.
Right.
So, yeah, it's, you built it on the site of an atrocity committed against indigenous peoples, and now they're gonna make you pay. So now the objectives of a haunted house, because the haunted house itself is basically the character, it is to often wear the person down, because haunted house stories usually begin small and they ratchet up. And it's like psychologically, emotionally wearing the person down to either possess them or to make them part of the house itself. Sometimes houses collect souls. If you die in that house, you stay there, kind of like in Hill House. It could be to feed. Some houses feed off negative energy. Stephen King loves to write about stuff like that. Like The Shining feeds off of its occupants, the Overlook Hotel. And it could just be chaos. Could just be a portal to evil.
Which is the Stanley Hotel.
Yes, it is. The real Stanley Hotel in Montana. It could just be a hellmouth.
Colorado.
Colorado?
Yes.
Ah, my bad. It's cold. Yeah, maybe you just built your house on a hellmouth, like in Somerville. Not Somerville, Sunnydale, excuse me. But those are the basic kinds of haunted houses that I was able to find. Now, why on earth are we so obsessed with it? And I have some theories. It's because your home is your sanctuary. It's the safest place for you. It's a place that you've designed. You've made it comfortable, familiar, and safe for yourself. So when that is turned into something malicious and beyond your understanding, you have no safe place left. There's nowhere to go.
Right.
You have no ground to stand on. Also, humans have been pretty horrible to each other ever since we were created, or came into existence. And I think the idea that there are consequences that linger after death has always been a belief of ours. Even the first murderers had superstitions about, where they committed the act and things like that. I think as a species, we believe that consequences exist even when no one's watching, even past the veil of death. And we're also a highly childish, young, and superstitious species. So,
you would think people would act better.
When bad things happen in a place, it's very understandable to link that place together. Now, I do not personally believe in ghosts or haunted houses, but if I was looking at a home and you told me, oh, yes, by the way, the previous occupant murdered his whole family before killing himself, but we got all the stains out and it's fine now, I wouldn't want to live there. Even though I'm not superstitious and I don't believe, why fucking take the chance is all I'm saying. So I think it's very natural for us to be obsessed. And that's why you see so many stories of haunted houses and why some of the earliest horror stories and folktales are centered around haunted or evil dwellings.
Yeah. I do believe a little bit of...
I know you do.
Things being there.
Yeah. I am open to it, and I know there are things that I certainly cannot explain. I'm just saying I don't typically walk into a house that's creepy and wonder about ghosts. Like, I don't really take any of that seriously.
I like to see all the interpretations of it, though, for sure.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Which is what we're going to be talking about after our commercial.
I think that's a great idea.
Looking to add some excitement to your Halloween party? Want to add some frights to the night? Well, look no further. Hire Brian. Brian can handle all of your wishes for a hauntingly good time for any style of party you might be hosting. Need a scary clown? Hire Brian. Want a secret stalker to scare trick-or-treaters? Brian is your man. Mad scientist? Scarecrow? Masked monster? Brian is up for all of it. Since completing his stint in a disreputable penitentiary, Brian has been fine-tuning his abilities to morph into what you need him to be, living up to his given nickname on the block, the Chameleon of Chaos. Brian is cheap, sometimes coming into your home for free. Brian will come and go as he pleases, sometimes without your knowledge. How easy is that? Depending on what you need Brian to do, he may add some of his own unique flair. Brian has a way of sticking with you, so tell your friends. We are not responsible for any damage, death, or dismemberment that Brian may or may not cause. Just go with it. Hire Brian. If you don't, he may show up anyway. This is a fake ad for a fake product and a horror-themed podcast. We do not condone nor endorse what Brian does that might be immoral or illegal.
Oh, quality products for quality listeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go buy one today.
Go buy
and
all
use
of it.
our code.
Give us money.
There is no code.
Code student debt.
So why don't you start?
Oh, I'd love to. I am going to start my recommendation with a movie I only recently watched. Now, this came out in 2020, and it's been on my list, but I just recently got around to it. It is His House, a UK film by director Remy Weeks. His House. This movie is something very special. Now, it stars the incredible Sope Dirisu, who you can see in Gangs of London and Black Mirror, and the always amazing and quickly becoming like one of my favorite actors, Wunmi Masaku, who's in basically everything. She's in so much good stuff. Black Mirror, Orange is the New Black, Loki, and she's so good in this movie. They are both amazing. Anyway, this movie is about two refugees who escape from a violent, war-torn African nation that's never named, but they both speak Dinka to each other, which is a language that is native to South Sudan, which tracks. So they come to the UK, and they're put through the incredibly dehumanizing social service system. They're sent to crummy housing and this is handled very, very well by a group of all white people who are social service workers, but they're all shits. They're doing good work, but they hate it, and the work they do is so much like Band-Aid on a gaping head wound kind of thing that they're just like
disillusioned.
Yes, and they're definitely part, like those kinds of people are part of the problem.
State agency.
Yeah, and there's a lot of I hate this term, but casual racism, meaning like no one's burning a cross on these people's lawns, but
microaggressions.
There are a lot of looks. They get followed around stores by security guards, things like that. And it's not done overtly in the movie. You just see it happening sort of in the background. Mm-hmm. And that is so well done because that is the nature of living as a minority in a racist area. Is most of the time it's not people coming right up to your face and screaming at you, although that does happen. It's being followed everywhere you go, getting a second look, having your ID overly scrutinized, being asked where you're from, that kind of thing.
Right.
So anyway, back to His House. Now, these two refugees tragically lost their daughter on the passage over. So they're dealing with that trauma. And Sope Dirisu especially plays a man absolutely barely holding it together, deeply traumatized, suffering from extensive PTSD. These folks have seen and been through everything a human being can. And I really, really want to emphasize that because this is a movie, but everything these folks go through happens every day. So they get to this house and strange things start happening. Bumps, noises, they start getting attacked. Now they start seeing a monster just known as the witch that starts telling them, you stole something and I want it back. And the witch is played by the incredible Javier Botet, who is Spain's Doug Jones. Javier Botet has been mentioned a few times on this podcast. He's most recently played Dracula in Last Voyage of the Demeter. He is just one of those amazing Andy Serkis type physical actors. Mm-hmm. He always plays a cool monster. He's really tall and lithe. Anyway, he's great. So the great thing about this movie is it really, really plays the trauma, the difficulty of moving to a completely new culture when you didn't want to, you had to. And the husband and wife both take very different paths, and that causes a lot of tension between them. The husband really tries to integrate, whereas the wife is still holding on to her identity. Mm-hmm. Now, I can't give any more away because things get very scary. It's a very effective, scary haunted house movie. But once there's a secret that they're holding on to, and once you learn the secret, things really, really do change. It is a movie essentially at its heart. Yes, it's about identity and refugees. That's the obvious part of it. But the subtle part of this movie is it's about commitment, relationships, and marriage and love. These two folks who are married and love each other go through things that would test any marriage. And the way they respond is not always happy or ideal. They're messy human people, and it's just done very authentically and really, really beautifully. Also, once again, amazing cast. Matt Smith is in it, Doctor Who himself, playing a real dick. So that's interesting. It's a very scary movie. I really do want to emphasize that this is straight up a horror movie, but essentially it's about the ghosts we carry with us and how we choose to coexist or fight them. It has 100% score on Rotten Tomatoes, if that means anything to you. So wow. I'm not the only one who likes this movie. His House, you can catch it on Netflix. It was a Netflix original. I think it's the only place you can watch it. It's so good, y'all. Check it out. It's really, really worth your time.
Awesome. Well, I am going to talk about 2 books and a movie, and I'm going to bookend the movie with books. So I'm starting with books. One book.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
A personal all-time favorite. So this is a book called House of Leaves from the year 2000.
Classic.
And it's written by Mark Z. Danielewski. And the origin of this debut novel of this author is strange also. He basically had a unkempt bundle of papers that he circulated in an underground group of literaries and readers.
Yeah. Back in the day, before the internet,
yeah.
People used to just literally make copies of stuff and make their own zines.
So it already had sort of a cult following.
Yeah.
And then Pantheon Books published it in March of the year 2000. And as the Unbound, papers had a cult following, this book quickly gained a cult following, including me. It's the one cult that I think I follow, which is the love of this book.
Samesies. I'm a member and leader of several cults, but I also read this when it came out and then read it again when you and I met.
Yeah.
Because you were like, have you read this book? And
yeah.
I'm like, you're the coolest person I've ever met.
And then I was like, I made a stupid joke and you were like, you're the nerdiest person I ever met.
That's synonymous with cool.
So it was praised by, literaries, by experimental type, the design, and how strange the story was.
Well,
also how strange the story laid out.
The composition of the book.
There's a lot.
Yeah.
There's the visual composition of the book, and then there's the narrative composition of the book, which is also unique. So the visual composition of the book is as if you were to compile many pieces of writing about this particular house.
It's almost like a found footage book.
Yes, book.
Because it's the conceit is somebody found all of these entries and put them together. So
there's some parts you need to read in a mirror.
Yeah.
There's sometimes
it's
one
backwards.
letter on a page from many, many pages.
Sometimes it spirals around
text,
the page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Large text, small text, newspaper text. But the real concept of the work is a culmination of people getting this original story. So the story is that a family moves into a home that's larger on the inside than the outside, but 1 square inch. And a mysterious doorway opens, leading to a maze of smooth ash gray walls. And Will Navidson, who's the house's owner, and he's a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, decides to investigate. So then he writes the Navidson record. So it's a documentary about he and his girlfriend and their 2 children investigating what the deal is with this house and this door. And they find a new closet in their bedroom. And then the nightmare happens. They find hallways. They find that something or someone is living there. And then their story ends. And there's a blind recluse named Zampano, who writes an academic paper on the Navidson record. So he basically puts together all these scrawlings in this apartment that he has walled himself into. And after he dies, a tattoo apprentice finds all of his notes and the book that we are actually holding in our hand and reading.
Yes.
And then he adds his own interjections and backstory to the book.
It's a book that built its own legend.
Yeah.
It's fucking brilliant.
And then Johnny's mother finds the writing of her son, who's been in an asylum at this point, and puts an appendix to the book that we're holding in our hands called The Whalestone Letters. So it's essentially a companion book that was written separately, but it's not. This is all the work of this mastermind. And I won't tell you, more of the specific plot points, but I will tell you that the thread that runs through this entire work is the intention is that this is supposed to make you become obsessed.
Yes.
With this house, with this writing and this reporting on this house and experience. What happens to everybody to the point of madness?
The constant shifting of typeset and format in the book has an effect on the reader that really puts you off your guard and makes you feel uneasy. It's a book. It's like reading the Necronomicon. Like the more you read this book, the more you start to feel like you're being haunted.
It's almost like you have become the investigative journalist and you are uncovering all these secrets. And the book itself is called The House of Leaves, which is essentially you're holding the house and its secrets in your hands through the leaves of the pages, which it's just, I've never read anything since.
There's nothing like it. There's nothing like it. It's like if E.E. Cummings wrote a whole book and went crazy. It's bananas. It's an increasingly difficult time to experience something like this. This is a unique experience. You will read this book and you will never read anything like it again.
And also the idea that these people are compelled to continue the story of the House of Leaves and how it affects them. And it's different every time, the effect it has and the actual stories that they're telling. Their physical experiences that they're basically telling you in written form. It's all different. It's different settings. It's different experiences, but it's really all the same. It's this something that's got a hold of you. It's this entity in this house.
Yeah. Amazing recommendation.
Thank you. Love that book so much, everyone.
I know you do. I remember when we first met and you were like...
I loaned my copy out and then I got a new copy of it for Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. Careful who you loan your books to. My next recommendation is 2007's El Orfanato, The Orphanage, directed by J.A. Bayona. This is his debut, and he is now making Jurassic Park movies, so he's doing pretty well. This is a movie from Spain. Now, I realize there's been a bit of a pattern with me lately. I've been recommending a lot of Spanish language movies, and I think that's because that language is spoken in a lot of different countries, and they make dope fucking horror movies. So really no further explanation there. Now, this opened at Cannes, where it got a 10-minute standing ovation for a horror movie. Side note, I think that's ridiculous. Standing ovations, 60-second maximum. Can we agree? Your hands are hurting. You're looking around the room like...
I don't understand
what
how...
the fuck?
Okay, so a Terra and Tandem sidebar here. When they say it's like an 8-minute standing ovation...
Is that good?
Are the same people clapping the entire 8 minutes, or do some people start and then others clap? Well, and then the original people start up
there's
again.
Always somebody
and then
that sits down, because they're like, Jesus, or, old. And I hate it because I'm always looking around the room like waiting. Okay, when are people going to fucking stop?
Wait, you've been in these situations?
I've been in a standing ovation.
Oh, yeah. Standing ovation?
Like you go to a premiere of something.
8 minutes?
I don't know about 8 minutes, but I've been in standing ovations that felt like they went on for goddamn ever. Like where your hands and your wrists hurt and you're just like,
I know that I've done it at concerts for encores because that's
different.
Getting them out.
Because you're trying to this is, the movie's over and, it's like you measure how many minutes these boneheads are clapping at you and whatever. Anyway, this got 10 minutes, so I guess that's good. The movie's fucking great, so who cares about that? Now, so Belén Rueda plays a woman named Laura who, together with her husband, moves back into the now abandoned orphanage that she was adopted from as a child. She moves there, like I said, with her husband and her son, Simon, who is HIV positive. So he requires a lot of care, and he's quite sickly. Now, she starts renovating this place, and the idea is she's going to reopen the orphanage, and she's going to be the new caretaker. Now, Simon starts, he makes friends with a strange little boy who wears a sack on his head, like a potato sack kind of. Mm-hmm. Spoiler, it's a ghost. So this weird caretaker named Benigna shows up and acts like a weird caretaker. You know the type. They know things they shouldn't. They sort of insinuate themselves into your lives. They go a little bit.
It's always the caretaker.
They always go like a little bit beyond what they're supposed to do and start asking you personal questions. So that starts to happen here. Now, I'm not going to give any more away because this movie goes places you're not expecting it to go. And it has a certain level of tragic beauty to it. There is a cyclical element to this film. There is an element that is very melancholy but also lovely in a way. Now, it is quite scary, and it does deal with tragedies involving dead kids, so careful with that. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, what is scarier than a creepy kid ghost? I think kid ghosts are way scarier than grown-up ghosts. Like the one from Ju-on that meows like a cat.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So The Orphanage it's a very moody film. It's got plenty of scares. It's got a lot, like the best haunted house movies. It really shows the strain that these events take on the living and the different decisions people make. Let's just say the husband and wife, Laura, reacts to these things very differently than her husband. And
sorry, I have to make decisions.
I should say Laura.
Yes,
from this movie. Now, The Orphanage, 2007. I really, really recommend it. It's got a classic style to it, and that ending, I tell you, it's like the best haunted house movies. It haunts you. You'll find yourself a week later thinking about it, going, "Ooh,
I like that."
Shiver. Yeah.
I like that a lot.
El Orfanato.
So my next is a movie, and it's called Sinister.
I am familiar.
And it's written and directed by Scott Derrickson.
A favorite over here at Terra and Tandem.
Yep. So basically it's about a true crime writer named Ellison Oswald, played by Ethan Hawke. And he moves into a home.
Quite a name, by the way.
Ellison Oswald.
Ellison Oswald.
Yeah. Sometimes names are distracting.
Oh, does my moniker of Braddington Wentworth Mortifier the 15th distract you?
Just sometimes. Sometimes I will like linger on reading a name for a long time.
You know what I always liked is like old Italian or Spanish aristocrats who had like 15 names.
Yeah, I do like when names, you can visualize the person based on their name.
That almost never works for me.
Oh, well,
honestly, I always picture
you have no imagination. So.
Oh, bummer. I always picture something completely different. I'm like, wow, you really don't look like a Hortense.
So Ellison is played by Ethan Hawke. And he moves into a home in the fictitious town of Chatford, Pennsylvania, with his wife, Tracy, played by Juliet Rylance, who is also the daughter of Mark Rylance.
Oh, Mark Rylance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From Bridge of Spies and The Outfit.
He's great. And he was in Dunkirk.
Yeah. She's also in The Perry Mason Show currently.
Cool. Okay.
So anyway, they move in with their 12-year-old son, Trevor, and their 7-year-old daughter, Ashley. And Ellison, did not tell his wife that the home where they moved into, the Stevenson family, were killed by hanging.
Yeah, you see, that's what I'm saying. Like, why risk it? There's a house right down the block where nobody got butchered.
He wants to write a biography about the case because the youngest son went missing. And he had a really big book called Kentucky Blood, followed by 2 very dud books.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on him to revive his career.
So he's really trying to find something juicy.
Basically, like
sinister.
If his next book doesn't sell, his career's done.
Right. And this film came out in, did I say when it came out? Because it came out, I think, in 2012. So Ellison finds a box in the attic of the home that contains a scorpion and a projector and some reels of Super 8 film that is labeled home movies.
One of those things seems like it doesn't belong with the others.
So he watches the films, and they're basically snuff films of different families being murdered in different ways, and each has its own label.
And the ways they're killed are gruesome.
It's awful. This one he's watching is Pool Party 66.
Fun.
And he sees a mass drowning of this family.
Less fun.
So each killing seems to be performed by something unseen on camera, like behind the camera or operating the camera.
Well, it's
like, who's operating the camera?
Yes.
Why haven't you stepped in to help?
Yes.
So then he starts to match the films to murders that have actually happened. And as he starts to hear noises and strange things start to happen, his own kids start to have some strange happenings. He goes to a local police, and he finds out that all of these murders, although this house is connecting them all the murders happened somewhere else. So he figures, well, it's not the house that's the problem. It's just a strange coincidence. But he goes to an occult specialist to decipher the symbols that are in the film. And basically the occult dude is like, yeah, you saw the 3 horrible things. Like, it was a scorpion, a snake, and then a dog. He's like, that's it. You're done. Like, you watch them. It's happening. And sorry to spoil alert, if you don't want to hear it, you can skip over it. But the core connection and why this is the horror is the haunted house, is that every family is possessed essentially by this monster, this Christian entity
named Bagul.
Yep, that possesses children who come in contact with these images in the film, and then follows them to their next home. So it drives them out of this home that they are now living in, every family, and then in the next home is where these horrible murders happen, and then in that home is where they find the video. So Oswald's family move into a new home. discover all this, and then their Super 8 video is called House Painting.
Yeah,
2012.
It's awesome. I love this movie.
The only thing
yes.
I'm going to say is,
yes, I agree.
Turn it off before the last
like
second
3
of
seconds.
The film.
Yeah. There's a jump scare at like the last frame
people.
of the movie that is just fucking stupid. Like, stop it with that. The last frame of the movie is just bleh. Like, okay, great.
So we did watch something recently that felt very much like this, except it was done very differently. The Boogeyman.
Yeah, the Boogeyman was great.
Yeah, so this is essentially like an entity, but it is attached to the house.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
and,
it attaches to the house and then attaches to the person, and then the person leaves the house and then they murder their family.
It was written by longtime Derrickson collaborator C. Robert Cargill, who also wrote the sequel. Derrickson did not return to direct the sequel, but James Ransome, who was in the first movie, he was the sheriff in the first movie, or deputy.
The deputy, yeah.
Deputy, yeah. He's in the second movie, and you might remember him from
the sheriff was
It
Fred
Chapter
Willard.
2. Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
I like James Ransome a lot. He's got a big kind of nervous energy that I enjoy. And Shannon Sossamon is in the sequel, too, which is fun. But, yeah,
Fun
Sinister
for you.
One
God,
is
you
awesome.
Have such a 90s crush on her.
Listen, I'm a man of excellent taste. So that's an amazing
Fred
recommendation.
Thompson is the sheriff.
Yes. Not Fred Willard. That's different. Is it me?
Yeah.
It's me.
Your last one.
My last one, and it is coming south of the equator from Argentina. Aterrados, terrified, from one of my favorite new voices on the horror scene, Demian Rugna. Now, Rugna is crushing it. He's got a new movie that just came out in theaters and is hitting Shudder later this month called When Evil Lurks, about a possession in a rural Spanish town. It's supposed to be...
That is coming out.
Yeah, I think it just came out in theaters. It's coming out on Shudder on October 27th, I believe. And I shamefully left it off my recommendations list. October's just stacked, everybody. But I'm really, really looking forward to it. Anyway, Terrified. Oh my God. Get ready to fill your pantalones with mierda. This is one of the scariest movies I've seen in the last decade. It is unbelievable. And it's got a great twist in that we're not talking a haunted house. It's a haunted neighborhood.
Oh,
so
wow.
All of these houses are haunted. Now, it begins by showcasing some of the people in the different houses and the different ghosts that they're dealing with. Now, there is a scene that takes place in a shower that is maybe one of the scariest things I've ever seen. I screamed at this part. Yes. Or maybe not screamed, but made like a gasp.
Scarier than the Psycho shower?
Absolutely. I mean, scarier in that, that is a very effective movie and a scary scene, but it's also over 60 years old and shows its age.
But the first time you see it.
Absolutely. Now, but this movie, so the shower scene.
And everybody thinks about that scene when they're at home alone 100%,
and
showering.
100%.
And hear something.
Used to freak me out as a kid.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hated closing the shower curtain.
But you also have to, keep it open.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know what I mean?
I know.
Like when you're not showering.
I know.
What's behind the shower curtain?
I always keep the shower curtain a little bit open.
And I always close it.
And why do people
weird.
in movies
So I don't want
pull
you
it
to
aside
see
so
inside.
quickly? They just open it like right away. I would like peek and then
Why?
run. Because if there's something fucked up in there, I don't want to open the whole thing up. I just want to run. People always throw it aside really bravely, and I am not.
It's ripping the Band-Aid off. It's a thing.
No, I slowly and torturously pull the Band-Aid
wow,
off.
that says a whole lot about you. You slowly and torturously.
Yes, like I don't jump into
everything.
I don't jump into a cold swimming pool to get it all over with. I will slowly acclimate myself, which is 1,000 times worse.
Yeah, you're miserable for 15 minutes instead of for 1 second.
Anyway, Aterrados, Terrified, 2017. Now, so you get a glimpse into all these houses. A dead child just appears at the kitchen table in one of these houses and just stays there. It's stuff like that.
Yikes.
It's deeply fucking scary and disturbing. Now, a group of investigators are made aware of the situation, and they come in and they start checking things out, and they have the incredibly good idea that always works out to split up and each take a different house. Now, that goes
Never a good idea.
really, really well for everybody involved. No, it's horrible. By God. So another cool thing that happens is like your voice is coming out of the drain, telling you to do terrible things. There's basically, this movie has like all the haunted house stuff in it because it takes place in different houses.
Yeah. It's like what I told you with those kids way back in the day, that to keep them from, committing crimes out there in the spooky season, they're like, here, we're going to make each basement in this neighborhood a haunted house.
Now, Demian Rugna is a real talent, y'all. This movie is absolutely terrifying. It's not overly gory. It's not nasty. It's just good old scary as shit. It's got some really relentless terrors. I mean, like, once the movie picks up, it just doesn't let go, and it picks up pretty quickly. Nice to see, this taking place in a place I've never been on. I've never been to Buenos Aires, which is where this takes place. And it's in a neighborhood that honestly could be any neighborhood. There's nothing spectacular about it. There's nothing particularly interesting. It just is. And I don't think they get too deep into the why this is happening, because honestly, who cares? It's just so good. It's so scary. And it that nice twist of it being not confined to one single like old Victorian mansion. These are just like normal looking houses in a semi-suburban Buenos Aires neighborhood.
Yeah.
So terrified. I can't recommend this enough. And anything that Demian Rugna comes out with, check it out, because this man is one of my new favorites and the real deal.
Awesome. Well, as promised, I'm bookending my recommendations with a book.
Nice.
So this book,
perfect thing to bookend things with.
Yeah. This book is called Home Before Dark by Riley Sager.
Another TNT favorite.
Yeah, TNT favorite. I do like Riley Sager books.
Yeah, you sure do.
This is my favorite one that he's written.
Oh, you've read a lot too.
I have.
So,
it came out in 2020, and it's told in a split narrative. The main character, Maggie Holt, she narrates events as they happen in present day, while her father, Ewan, he narrates passages from his book, House of Horrors, which details the family's time at Bainbury Hall in the 1990s. So Bainbury Hall is a Victorian home in Vermont that Ewan and his wife Jessica purchase and move in with their daughter. And the realtor tells them that the home was the site of a murder-suicide from prior owner with the last name Carver. He murdered his daughter Katie before taking his own life, leaving his wife Marta to find their bodies.
Your last name is Carver,
yeah.
And you're a oh man.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Richard Murders People. Guess what I do?
So when the Holts are there, they experience, according to the book House of Horrors, very strange events, and reference both the Carver murder suicide as well as the home's original owner, William Garson, and his daughter Indigo, who Maggie claims to see when she's playing in the yard, and she calls him Mr. Shadow and her Miss Pennyface because she's got pennies over her eyes.
Ooh.
So Ewan decides to investigate the history of the house, assisted by Petra, the teenage daughter of the housekeeper. And the kitchen ceiling collapses. Ewan discovers letters that detail a love affair between Indigo and Indigo Garson and the painter of the home, and hundreds of snakes. Hundreds and hundreds of snakes.
In the ceiling?
Yes.
That just come out?
That collapse with the collapsing ceiling.
I don't like that.
So the letters contradict the local legend that Indigo killed herself. And
can we back up a second? Snakes?
Yeah, I know. Snakes on the ceiling.
How did they get to the letters? I mean,
so she didn't commit suicide. She was actually murdered. And her ghost is haunting the house. And so the Holt family flees. So Maggie, Ewan, and his wife, they leave.
Yeah.
So now Maggie is there currently. And this is about 25 years later. Her father has died, and she inherits this house. And she goes back for the first time with the intention of selling it. And she is actually the restorer of old homes.
Yeah, you know, that's like our situation. We have so many active properties, but we also have a lot of houses that we just forgot we own and just sit empty for 25 years.
Exactly.
You know, just a house.
He left because of all the horrible.
No, I know. I'm talking about the phenomenon of you and I, two people born in of the current generation, and how many homes we just own.
Yeah, we inherited so many.
Yeah, they just sit there. I mean, I'm never going to give them to people or move there.
All right. So Maggie, she was only 5 when they left, 5 or 6. She doesn't remember much, and she basically thinks that her father's book is a joke. She doesn't believe a word in it. She doesn't believe in ghosts, and when she goes to the home, strange things start to take shape for her. People from the House of Horrors still live in the area, including Martha Carver, and they resent how the book portrayed them and portrayed this, family that used to live there. So without giving away everything, I will tell you that Maggie starts to doubt her own belief system. She starts to think that the house is haunted by Petra's ghost. And then she thinks everybody's the murderer. People think her dad did it. People think that the caretaker's son did it. She starts to think that one of them does it, like this painter that was originally having the affair with Indigo's son did it. And basically when Maggie ends up in the hospital for a reason that you'll have to read, her mother said her father only wrote House of Horrors to protect Maggie's secret.
That's creepy.
So I don't want to give it away, because if I say any more, I'm giving away the entire
I
reveal.
already, just based on what you're saying, I want to read this book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the end of the book, the afterword, or the the follow-up chapter, epilogue, Maggie's writing a second book of House of Horrors.
That sounds really good.
Yeah, it was great. Honestly, really great. And it's not what you think.
There are so many haunted house movies and books that, I mean, we barely. I think we're going to have to do another one.
Well, I want to just mention The Conjuring, Paranormal Activity.
Oh, I mean,
those are all haunted house movies you can check out anytime.
I want to go a little OG with it and talk about Burnt Offerings, The Changeling, the Haunting from 1963, the 1989 version of The Woman in Black, not the one with Daniel Radcliffe, which was all right. This one that the BBC did is legit very scary.
Yeah.
Ju-on. There's so many.
So many.
One elephant in the room I do want to mention. The Amityville Horror.
Well, you mentioned it once already. Now you're mentioning it again.
Did I?
Yeah.
I did.
To not mention it.
I did. So
you're
now,
mentioning it again to be like,
the reason it's not part of my recommendations is twofold. Number one.
Are you talking about the one with Ryan Reynolds?
No, I'm just talking about the Amityville Horror. Specifically the original one with James Brolin, Margot Kidder, and Rod Steiger. But there are a billion sequels. There's a remake with Melissa George and Ryan Reynolds. But I'm avoiding these as a recommendation because, number one, I'm from Long Island. I know Amityville. That's not the house. Doesn't look anything like that. Amityville is nothing like what it has been made to be through these movies. And Frank Lutz was a liar and a wife beater. So I don't really want to support that. Also, it's not good. It just is not a very good movie. The original has its moments. Rod Steiger in particular is pretty awesome as the priest. And always love watching Margot Kidder do anything because she's such a hot mess.
Listen, I'll tell you, I'll break it down for you. If you're interested in the story behind the truth, the truth behind the story of Amityville Horror and the house,
read the book.
Listen to the podcast called Very Scary People, hosted by Donnie Wahlberg. He talks all about all of the mystery around it.
Does he do it with a neutral accent?
Yeah. What do you mean? It's great.
I mean, it's Donnie.
And he talks about...
we're going to talk about fucking ghosts.
He talks about how the stories came to be, what the truth is. Yeah. The police...
Well, we talked about it a lot. We talked about how DeFeo's lawyer...
Yeah.
Ronnie DeFeo's own lawyer conspired with Frank Lutz to come up with the story. I mean, it's wild. But the thing is the original movie is not very good. The second one's actually a little bit better. It's got Paulie from the Rocky movies. I can't remember the actor's name. But it's just... Everybody knows it. And
there's mob ties. I'll just say that.
Yeah. It's
to the real story behind the Amityville.
And there are
legend.
Seriously like 12 of them or some like ridiculous amount of Amityville movies, and none of them are good. So anyway, haunted houses, y'all.
Why we're going to a haunted house fright fest.
We're going. Well, it's not a like a real haunted house. It's more of an attraction. It's both.
It's a warehouse building. It's all indoor, filled with like 5 or 6 different haunted houses.
I'm excited.
Like themed haunted houses.
But is it like really
it's not a physical No.
That's what I said. I said it's not like a legit haunted house. It's an attraction.
Yeah, it's an attraction. It's a
like
haunted
Halloween
house
Horror
attraction.
Nights.
I thought you meant it was like... Yeah. Okay.
No. Nobody
cut
was.
All that out. That was terrible.
Bagul didn't run over anyone with lawnmowers in this one.
I want to give the full credit to where we're going. So
let's hear it.
Fright Kingdom in Nashua, New Hampshire.
Oh, stay tuned for a possible bonus-ode recap.
And if this is the last recording of our pod that
Look
we
for
have
us in Fright Kingdom.
We're in Nashua.
We have always been there. We are in the walls.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Terror in Tandem is written, produced, and recorded by Laura and Richard Mathiasen, and edited and mixed by Richard Mathiasen. Our Terrorfest theme and all other music was written and performed by David Suspanic. All opinions expressed on this podcast are our own and should be taken as such. Thanks for listening, and please remember to give us a like, a review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you do, we promise not to haunt you.